Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Course Consultant Show. I'm so very excited to have an awesome guest here with me today, and I'm going to make an incredible introduction to the one and only Wendy Breakstone. Wendy is an audio summit coach and a lead generation strategist, specifically for online coaches and course creators who want to grow their email list and fill their pipeline without the struggle of slow growth strategies or hours and hours of video. Not only that, Wendy is actually the creator of the Micro Audio Summit, an audio marketing strategist. And this is an incredible process and strategy, which we're going to unpack on today's interview. And over the past 2 decades, Wendy has consulted and mentored hundreds of service-based business owners who need marketing and operation support to create sustainable, long-lasting growth. So I'm super excited to have Wendy here with me today. I'm going to bring Wendy on here. Wendy, how are you today? Thank you so much for being on today's show. I'm so excited.
I am so happy to be here, Melody. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes. And, Wendy, you and I actually had a conversation before, and we found out that we're actually within the Arizona area, which is so cool. It's always so great to actually realize that people are near you physically, even though, with the digital marketing and online space, it's many times where people are hundreds, if not thousands, or across the globe. So very cool. So Wendy, we are so excited today to have you on the Course Consultant Show. And I'm so excited to talk about this lead generation strategy, which you've seen to work for your business, not only for yours, but for hundreds of other people. What exactly is a micro audio summit? Could you walk us through that?
Yeah, so the Micro Audio Summit system is something that I developed recently um, because I needed to solve a fundamental problem in my own business. And I've been working, like I said, behind the scenes as a marketing operations or CMO type person, as a virtual CMO for some different seven-figure entrepreneurs. And I realized it was time for me to kind of come out from behind the scenes and grow my own business. And I didn't have an audience authority or an email list to market to. And so I created a very big full scale audio summit, which was amazing. It grew my email list a lot, like 800%, but I was really, really burnt out. And so after I went through that, I kind of sat back down and I thought, like, there has to be a quicker, more reliable way that I can like rinse and repeat an audio summit. Because fundamentally, I don't want to force I don't want to force leads at the top of my funnel to have to sit and watch hours and hours of slide presentations or talking head videos like you see in a regular kind of virtual summit. So the audio summit was great. I sat down, I kind of noodled it for a week or so. And then kind of when I came back up for air, I realized that I had created the Micro Audio Summit. And basically what it is a small scale, high impact event that's relatively low effort. So if you compare it to like a virtual summit, it's so much low effort, but you get that surge to your email list in, weeks instead of months, basically.
Absolutely. And, as someone who's run a virtual summit before, I ran one last year around May called the Inspired Course Summit. There was a
Hmm.
lot of logistics to plan. I had about seven or eight speakers, some of which didn't actually pan out. I had several affiliate links. I had swipe files. I had, a very like 3 day extravaganza. And while certainly I respect people who do virtual summits, and I think that there are some that are very successful, it is a large undertaking, both from a project management perspective and also for you if you're running and actually presenting something. So now you've mentioned that it's been on a smaller, lower key way to promote your business, to generate leads. But what's the biggest difference do you see between maybe a regular podcast, a private podcast? And you've kind of already shared the difference between that and a large scale summit.
Yeah. So fundamentally, if you have a public podcast, for instance, it's not behind an email wall. Right. And so you're not, it takes time. It will work. It's a great brand strategy. And a public podcast is a longer game. Right. And if you want to go into a launch and get a quick surge to your email list and you don't already have like an audience or authority, starting a public podcast is not going to get you that surge quickly because there's no urgency built into it. The reality is if you host a public podcast, it's there for whenever the people get around to it. And that's great, except that most people always have something more urgent to do. And so, at least if you put it behind an email wall, then you are creating an opportunity that you can market to them and remarket to them because you have their email address. With a micro audio summit, there's kind of four main features of the micro audio summit. And the first one is you are working with 4 to 7 speakers. Now, you mentioned that you had about 8 speakers. Typically, with a full scale virtual summit with all the bells and whistles, multiple days, you're looking at dozens of speakers. I sometimes see summits that have like 24 speakers. And the reality is that in that like situation, more isn't necessarily better. Like you are potentially overwhelming your attendees and your audience with so much information that by the time your summit is over, they don't know which way to go. And so the micro audio summit is 4 to 7 speakers, super manageable for the host to manage just 4 to 7 speakers, very manageable for the attendees to consume or to binge listen to just, a couple hours of content. And the speakers love it too, because they're not getting lost in a sea of speakers in multiple days and, a crazy schedule and all that. So the 4 to 7 speakers works really well. And then the second thing about the Micro Audio Summit that makes it unique is that you launch it all on the same time in the same day. You don't have to worry about like the crazy schedule. And, you say that the summit is dropping on Thursday at 7 a.m. And then the interviews go live. You let the registered attendees know. And then from there, they have an opportunity to binge listen as they want to. You have their email address. So if they don't listen right away, you still have a way to market back to them in the future. The other thing about the Micro Audio Summit that's unique is that there's no upsell. You don't charge them or take access away after 24 or 48 hours. You let them retain their access as long as they've registered during your registration window. So you've created the FOMO, you've created that concentrated effort, but you're giving them something high value and you're not taking it away from them. So it gives them being your attendees much more flexibility.
Yes, and I think one thing that I've noticed with just both attending many different summits before and also being an event creator for a summit, I find that one, as an attendee, like you said, I do get really overwhelmed. I start seeing, constant new email updates about the event, and there's this feeling of I don't want to look at my email anymore. I'm sure that there's some nuggets that I could grab, but some of the speakers may not have topics that I'm really interested in, especially if it's, as you mentioned, a big lineup, like 20 or more people. And obviously, summits are great for lead generation. And then if you have an offer at the end, whether that's to join a membership program, a group coaching program offer, or something else like one-on-one services or coaching, that's a great way to promote at the end. I've seen other people do it with the bundles, and then you have the upsell of getting the VIP access, lifetime access, things like that. And so having something there at the end to pitch, definitely positive upside of having a summit, but definitely as an attendee can feel very overwhelming. And of course, as the organizer on the flip side, there's that sense of fatigue where people are really excited at the beginning of the process, and you have like a pop-up Facebook group if you do it that way, and there's so many different types of engagement that you have to keep people going. So what I love about your system, Wendy, is that you're saying it's easy to manage as both the attendee and also as the person hosting it. So that's super exciting. So can you share with me a little bit more about what you've seen students excel in with your system? Because I actually am part of your Facebook group, which I love, by the way. What kinds of growth have people seen? Any sort of aha moments that have really just stood out to you as an instructor for this type of framework? Because you do share and teach these strategies to your students and clients.
Yeah, I've been so, well, I knew that they would get great results. And I have been seeing some of my students recently launch their micro audio summits and start to promote them and just go through the process, have their own aha moments, because the micro audio summit does two things really well. It brings you that surge to your email list. So top of funnel, high quality leads, right? Followers are not leads. And so leads happen when they join your email list, at least in my mind. So you're getting those really high value, highly targeted leads. And you're also building a deeper relationship with your speakers because you're doing the interviewing. You're not forcing them to send in a slide presentation or putting one more thing on their to-do list, right? You go from being like a bother basically by forcing your speakers to make you a slide presentation to forming a really fast alliance with them. So my students who are launching summits have seen things like, they open up registration and within 3 days they have 150 new hot leads. And they're done. Like one of my clients just said the day that her summit was dropping, she was hanging out in the park with her kids because she wasn't, freaking out, burning out or feeling like she was selling out because it's so easy to implement. And so she got about 100 leads to her most recent micro audio summit. A lot of it depends on time of year and who your speakers are and how many speakers you have, because like all summits, it works on the kind of other people's audiences type of framework. So like you said, depending on how the speakers promote and the size of their lists and stuff, you're going to see a fluctuation. But those leads that are coming in are really highly targeted because you've spent time curating your speakers. So I now have clients that are actually licensing the Micro Audio Summit framework from me so that they can help others launch their Micro Audio Summits. A lot of people are already starting to work on their second and third micro audio summits because it's so easy once you do the first one to rinse and repeat. And every time you're going to get that surge. So you've got a really nice, easy runway. Think about it. If you're a plane, you got a nice runway, which is your micro audio summit. And then you take off on the back end and then you launch your program, product, or service, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a great way to sell more of your course afterwards. Fundamentally, I didn't build it with a VIP pass upsell because I want people to focus. I want your attendees to focus on, wow, I just got so much value from this small event that didn't burn me out, that didn't overwhelm me. And I now know the host really well, right? Because you've been the one showing up in all of the interviews with the speakers. And now you're going to then be able to have that launch to ask somebody to make a conversion, to buy, to join your program or whatever. So right now, if you're watching this live, I'm in the middle of having registration open for my Shrink Your Marketing Micro Audio Summit. And I've had registration open for 6 days. And as of this morning, I had 230 leads. So yeah, I shoot for about 200. And I'm over the goal. So
So exciting.
it's really good. It's very exciting. People are really digging the system, and they all say the same thing when I get their testimonials after the fact. It's like, now I have a rinse and repeat system that I know I can just plug and go. And so it's really, really handy.
And I think one thing I really like about this is that for people who are on the go, you're driving your kid to school, or you're grabbing a cup of coffee, or you just don't want to be at your screen. As someone who works from home, I'm constantly looking at my screen. And when you have a summit, you kind of have to make that actual commitment. Go, okay, I'm going to look at the screen, I'm going to look at those presentations, I'm going to look at all these slides. But what I love about the system that you've created, Wendy, is that you are sharing information in a really casual, organic way that makes that very intimate experience, and people do not have to be looking at a presentation if that's not the way that they like to consume content. So that's really exciting. And I know, Wendy, you actually have a accelerator version of your program, the Micro Audio Summit. Could you explain the differences between those two programs?
Yeah, for sure. And before I do that, I just want to kind of reiterate a point that you made, which is I do not want to be forced to be chained to my computer screen till my eyes bleed, nor am I going to do that to any of my leads at the top of my funnel. I believe that like, especially if you're an online course creator, an at-home entrepreneur, if you are at your computer screen, you need to be doing income producing activities and watching slide presentations a lot of the times that are very high level and just, let's face it, a little fluffy. that's not a good use of your time. And so, like you said, the Micro Audio Summit is flexible and accessible for the attendee to consume it when they're, waiting in line to pick up their kid at school or walking their dog, cooking dinner. And that's how we want to show up for our leads and for our clients, is we want to make it easy for them to learn from us. It's going to heighten their experience. So that's really important in my book. And it was really important for me to create content that I would want to consume and the way that I want to consume it. So that was one of the key determining factors when I created the system. So you asked about the accelerator. There's a couple different ways that you can use my programs to create your own Micro Audio Summit. The best way is to join the Micro Audio Summit Accelerator. And what that is 6 weeks. It's not long. I don't believe in locking anybody into a really long program. That's not how I roll personally. And so if you join my accelerator, you're going to be creating your Micro Audio Summit. Like, I want you to join when you want to start building your Micro Audio Summit. And during those 6 weeks, you have access to me every week to ask your questions live, to get answers, to work out any of the areas that you might be stuck the first time, so that you don't have overwhelm, so that it's as easy as possible. And then after that, you can just rinse and repeat. So the accelerator is 6 weeks of live coaching, plus a Facebook group where you can also access me and the other members. And you get this bonus library that I'm always adding to, like trainings and tech trainings and tools and all that. It also includes the full Micro Audio Summit System 2.0, which is all of the stuff that you need to create it, so that you don't have to really create on your own. It's got all the trainings, templates, and trackers. You can buy the standalone 2.0 system, but what I have found is that, not just with my program, but with any program, if somebody joins a group program which brings them through it like a boot camp, you are going to get into action, take action, and meet your goal. So that's why I created the accelerator program.
Yes, and I really love cohorts, and I agree with you. I have on demand courses, and what I found is that within a cohort setting or within a live aspect, like a hybrid aspect, people, if you set the goal and say, okay, by this date, we're going to have this, and this done. And each week, we're going to progress through this together. You can go ahead, you can review the modules on your own, not going to stop you, but having that guided support and being able to really sit with the material, being able to explore the questions that just in general don't necessarily always come up when you're doing it on your own, because you lack that feedback. There's not the ability to ask you questions. It's just so beneficial. And I know that, your group is so great, not just for learning your summit process for micro audios and the strategy around that, but also just seeing the great conversations that are there, and the awesome speakers that have really just been able to showcase their skills and their talents within your group. And so I just have loved watching all of the great conversations that have been happening in your group, which is so exciting. And I want to ask you too, like, do you have any, tips when it comes to running your cohort? Have you noticed anything that you're like, you know what, this is working really well for me in terms of your delivery? Like, for example, is there a tool that you use that you're like, you know what, this has made my life so much easier running this accelerator version. The first time I ran this accelerator, I didn't have this. Now this tool has helped me, or, this little trick I tried to help really just make it easier for me to deliver, or easier for the consumer and the student to actually access and go through the material.
One of the things that I use a lot, especially as I go through the cohorts, because every time, I get an opportunity to work with somebody in a live setting, I'm learning more as well. And I'm thinking of new ideas and new ways to make the Micro Audio Summit framework even more flexible. So one of the tools that I use all the time is Descript, actually. And what that allows me to do is, if I'm doing a 2-hour live coaching, right? A lot of it may be, at people like telling me where they're at, or just kind of like, not stuff that I necessarily need to give to other people. But what I've been able to do is, the places where I've done a specific training or things that have come out of it that are really fundamental to the program, I've then be able to shrink it down very quickly, make it its own little standalone video with the script, and then put it back into the system so that all of the people have access to that particular training. And that's been a game changer for me. The other thing that I find that is really helpful with Descript and when you record on Zoom is I like to create audio only versions of my courses and programs and live coaching sessions, and then I put them into a private audio feed and give them back to the my accelerator clients, because that way they can fast forward and they don't have to be sitting. Maybe they just want to zoom in on one part of it. They can just listen to it on the go. So I use Hello Audio for that. But between Descript and Hello Audio, it's really been a game changer for me on how not only I can serve in real time, but then how I can also then quickly regenerate or repurpose that content into content that the rest of my students that are in the do it yourself version can access. So that's been a game changer.
Awesome. Yeah. And I know private podcasts so great. Still similar experience consuming on demand. Awesome. Well, I know, Wendy, your time's so valuable. You've already given so many great tips and strategies. I'm so excited for people to dig in. Make sure if you're watching the live video on YouTube, here on Facebook, or anywhere else that I'll be sharing links to Wendy's tried and true system, the Micro Audio Summit. You have to go grab it. It's absolutely incredible. Join the accelerator and check out Wendy's group. There's some free resources there that you can check out. Wendy, is there anywhere where you want to direct people if they're saying, Wendy, I need this like right now. I'm planning a launch. I don't want to do a sales webinar. I don't want to do a private podcast. I for sure don't want to do a virtual summit. That's way too stressful. Where can people find you?
Yeah, for sure. So I think you're going to have the link to the masterclass, which is a great place for anybody to start and learn more. It's about a 30-minute free masterclass, and you can watch it or listen to it. There is an audio only version of the masterclass, and that's going to give people a little more kind of a deep dive into the fundamentals behind the Micro Audio Summit framework and system. If anybody wants to reach me, you can feel free to just hop over to my website, wendybreakstone.com. And in the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see a little microphone icon, and you can send me a voice message, and then I'll answer it, or you can just pop me a DM. I'm pretty available.
That's so exciting. Yes, fantastic. And I'm so thrilled that you could join us today. It's been such a pleasure, Wendy. Thank you again for sharing. And I'm going to make sure that I get all those wonderful links to your website and offers. Thanks again for coming to join me on the Course Consultant Show.
Thanks for having me, Melody. Have a great day.
You too.